Give the floor to the distinguished representative of Sri Lanka.
Mr. President, I thank you for giving me the floor. Excellencies, distinguished participants. Mr. President, we thank you today for convening this high-level meeting on a subject of critical importance for the inhabitants of this planet, and I won't be wrong to say for the future of the planet itself. The use and testing of nuclear weapons is, needless to say, perhaps, and we have said it ad nauseum, is one of the most serious threats to the community of nations and to future generations. We have heard the story of the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945 incessantly. And we still perhaps have not, the lesson has still not got through to us. And their long-lasting effects and the dangers of subsequent events of testing remind us of the devastating consequences of nuclear weapons. A startling reminder. Mr. President, Sri Lanka therefore echoes the cry of humanity to be freed from the specter of nuclear warfare, and therefore actively supports all initiatives that contribute towards a world free of nuclear weapons. Banning nuclear tests is a giant step towards that end. Over several decades, Sri Lanka has been unwavering in its support for the attainment of a world free of nuclear weapons and the complete elimination of such weapons. We have consistently expressed our support for nuclear disarmament, which is universal, which is non-discriminatory, and which is verifiable. We remain convinced that the goal of nuclear disarmament can be achieved in a time-bound manner by a step-by-step process, underwritten, I say, by a universal commitment and an agreed multilateral framework that is global and non-discriminatory. Mr. President, Sri Lanka's commitment to this initiative, the elimination of threats posed by nuclear weapons and other weapons of mass destruction, is reflected in the international treaty obligations Sri Lanka has undertaken in the field of disarmament. We have always maintained that a transparent, sustainable, and credible plan for multilateral nuclear disarmament is an absolute essential, a sine qua non, so to speak, in order to achieve the ultimate goal of a world free of weapons of mass destruction. We believe that there is a need for a meaningful dialogue among all states possessing nuclear weapons to build trust and confidence and to reduce the specter of nuclear weapons in security doctrines. Given today's international security environment, we welcome the enhanced resonance of the international community on the shared objective of eliminating the nuclear danger. My dear friends, today's commemoration and promotion of the International Day Against Nuclear Test is an important affirmation, I say, of our common determination to create conditions and steps that are necessary, indispensable, towards the legal proscription of nuclear tests. Disarmament treaties, my dear friends, are more than just legal obligations. They're also moral commitments, I say, based on trust between states and rooted in the trust that citizens placed in their governments. My dear friends, we are trustees for the people we represent. That's an onerous duty that we must appreciate. And that trust has to be held in the highest levels for generations to come, in keeping with the intergenerational trust that has been bestowed on us by the community of nations. So we must all, I say, contribute towards building and consolidating the trust necessary for a world free of nuclear weapons. The Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty is a cornerstone, I say, as was observed before, of the mutual trust that we need. My dear friends and excellencies, our collective global goal must be to strive for a world that is free of nuclear weapons and other weapons of mass destruction. But by doing so, it is important for every member of the global community of nations to take all necessary steps within its competence to sign and ratify the CTBT and to help bring that treaty into force. The CTBT, as has been observed by many of us before, is an effective measure for promoting nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation. By constraining the development, qualitative improvement of nuclear weapons and ending the development of advanced new types of nuclear weapons through a global network of monitoring facilities that allow for on-site inspections. And we strongly therefore urge and encourage the 8 states that have yet to sign and or to ratify the CTBT to do so in view of its overwhelming and near universal support and role in achieving a world free of nuclear weapons. Furthermore, we also believe that the Treaty on Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, the TPNW, should be our ultimate goal. The Non-Proliferation Treaty has been adequately reflected in the TPNW. Sri Lanka therefore believes it has an obligation to convey to the future generations the tragic consequences of the use of nuclear weapons and attaches a great importance to education on disarmament and non-proliferation. I sincerely hope that this meeting will contribute to raising public awareness of the importance of nuclear disarmament. It is regrettable, Mr. President, that no nuclear-armed state or any of its allies, the so-called nuclear umbrella states, have signed the TPNW so far, ostensibly for the reason that it conflicts with the doctrine of nuclear deterrence. In this context, Sri Lanka wishes to reaffirm the importance of the NPT, including the 2010 NPT review conferences, its 64-point action plan, and the 13 practical steps the NAC outlined in a bid to encourage disarmament, agreed at the 2000 NPT review conference, and not, of course, forgetting the consensus on many matters reached in the recently concluded NPT discussions, notwithstanding the fact that no outcome was agreed upon, the importance of a genuine adherence to all other principles and instruments, and hope that this open consultation would offer the global community greater reason for hope in a trigger-happy world, I say, that had offered us little recourse in the last 2 years, or perhaps in the last 20 years. I thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the distinguished representative of Sri Lanka.